Hello, everybody. Welcome to Mubarak's podcast. This is Hashmad Mubarak, your host. I'm honored to welcome our special guest, Lorraine, a passionate educator and advocate who has dedicated her career to supporting refugee youth as they rebuild their lives in new communities. Through teaching one-on-one mentoring and community outreach, she has helped young people navigate education, gain job skills, and find their voices in societies that often overlook them. Her work has been rooted in creating opportunities where others only saw barriers. For us in Afghanistan, where education of girls has been banned and the future of an entire generation feels uncertain, Lauren's journey speaks to the power of education as resistance. Her experience in empowering youth to advocate to overcome challenges can inspire us to think about new ways to fight for our rights, to preserve hope and reclaim dignity even in the darkest times. Lorraine, it's a great honor to have you on Mubarak's podcast. Welcome there.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you once again for joining us. It's a great honor. But let me start the first question from here that education in Afghanistan is not only about learning for us and for Afghan girls, it has become an act of defense. Girls are banned from schools and universities while boys face a system filled with the censorship and fear. At the same time, refugee youth in the US who have escaped war or persecution often arrive with trauma, as you know better than me, and with uncertainty. Yet they still hold dreams for their future. Your work has shown that education is not just about classrooms, but about, survival, hope, and freedom. In Afghanistan today, many young people continue to learn secretly in the basements or through online networks because they believe knowledge is the only weapon they have left. First, let me ask this that based on your experience, how can education serve as a revolutionary tool for resistance for Afghan youth, especially for girls who are now fighting simply for the right to study?
Yes, it is a very unfortunate situation that is happening in Afghanistan. One of the most top women's rights crises in the world right now. And for education, education is a tool to build the future. It all has a chain effect. The more women learn, the more they contribute to their communities and their societies and to their governments. And oftentimes we see governments wanting to keep all the control and wanting to make sure the country is developing where it wants to go. So that power is taken from the girls and from the people. But from what I have seen, many Afghan girls who come over to the United States, they are determined and they have a beginning to end career plan. I have never met a young Afghan girl who did not know what she wanted to do. She always came with that plan and that tool to help others. So education is sometimes a privilege, but for the young Afghan population, I would like to say that they use education as a tool to turn back onto their communities and for the goodness of others, which is one of the beautiful and many great things that I appreciate when it comes to interacting with young Afghan women and men as well. So, yes, it is a tool to improve the
Yeah,
future.
but many Afghan youth today, unfortunately, are facing frightening reality, No access to schools, no pathways to higher education, no jobs. At the same time, thousands are leaving the country as refugees and struggling to start over in unfamiliar places. You have worked directly with refugee youth, teaching English, preparing resumes, guiding them toward jobs and building their confidence once again. When everything seemed answered, and in many ways, Afghan youth today are in the same position, unfortunately, forced to choose between staying in silence or leaving to chase opportunities abroad. But my question is this, that how can Afghan youth who remain inside the country begin to build the skills and hope for their future, even under restrictions? And what lessons can they learn from refugee youth who have rebuilt their lives elsewhere?
Yes, first, I do want to start off by saying that the evacuation that happened in Afghanistan in 2021 was a very unfortunate and miscalculated operation, and I hope that refugee workers and people who serve the refugee population can make up for at least just a small fraction of what happened to our Afghan allies. So, with Afghan youth that are still in Afghanistan, using resources such as LinkedIn and social networking sites are great tools because, like you mentioned earlier, there are secretive institutions and organizations that are um, teaching and giving out resources. So definitely creating a strong network. Those who are in Afghanistan and who are on LinkedIn and who are aware of these resources to form that online network and to share. Lessons they can learn from refugee youth who are in the United States is that those who do travel over to the US, they are also starting over, as you may hear or know, and sometimes they come with less than what they had in their previous country.
Mhm.
So it is important to note that even though this refugee has made it out of their home country, that they are still facing struggles and burdens. So learning the similarities that one refugee at home and one refugee abroad still share, and they're still connected by that resiliency that they need to keep going. So definitely keeping your network close and being as secretive as you can. I do know that some of my colleagues are from Afghanistan and are advocates, but cannot be on social media due to their family back home. So definitely finding those who can speak for you and who can relay this information to you safely.
Yes, but as I have read about your background, one of your powerful rules was working with families, helping them understand the school system, connecting them with resources, and encouraging them to support their children's dreams, something that which is very outstanding. In Afghanistan, families now face impossible choices. Unfortunately and sadly, whether to keep their daughters at home in silence or to risk punishments for supporting underground education. Many parents want to help, but they don't know how. The family, in this sense, becomes either a prison or a source of liberation. I would like to hear from you, Dad. What role do you believe that Afghan families can play in resisting oppression and ensuring their children, especially daughters, to still have access to education and opportunity?
Yes, so like in many cultures, family is where everything starts. It's where you learn your morals and your views, your gender roles. So in these hard circumstances, it may be hard to uphold these values, and it may seem very disappointing that a father cannot send his daughter to school. But I think it's very important that within these close communities, brothers, male figures, or previous educated women to pass that knowledge and encouragement within the household. Because even if the law says something, as long as you have that emotional and family support, there is hope and opportunity to learn from parents or from past relatives who do have that education. I have seen many families make great sacrifices for their children, and I've come across fathers, mothers, uncles who want their young women to go through college. They do have their protective norms over the women, sending them to more women-dominated classes or fields, but the education push is still there. So
Mhm.
family is the backbone to a woman or to a
Yes.
child's career.
Yes, family is our backbone. You're right. You have organized activities to build leaderships, as I have said before, confidence and community among refugee youth, helping them to believe in themselves and their power to change things. In Afghanistan, young people are told every day that their voices do not matter, their lives do not matter, and their future is already stolen. But we know that even in silence, leadership can grow, community can still form, even in exile, even underground. Uh, it will be so interesting to hear that from your experience, how can Afghan youth begin building leadership and community under such a repressive conditions, and how can these small acts become seeds for larger revolutionary change in the future?
Great question. Yes. I like to say leadership is very individual. There is no one equation to be a leader. Everybody has a unique chance. So whether it is someone in Afghanistan who had this career and this amount of knowledge, that makes them a leader because with that knowledge, they're able to educate more and to share more. So even if it seems like I'm not qualified, I don't have a degree, I don't speak in front of people, I'm not a leader. But if
Mhm.
you are a young girl who knows how to sew, how to cook, who knows math, who can learn from her brother or learn from her male relatives, that equips you with the skills to be a leader and to spread that information. It's all about your surrounding because what leadership for me may be different for leadership for a young Afghan woman. So it's all about taking what you have already and making it unique and getting out of the idea that I have to be a professional, highly educated person to be a leader.
Yes, but in these days, it seems that refugees in every part of the world, they do not have any more space. But in many parts of the world, refugees are forced to rebuild their lives, in completely unfamiliar systems, from schools to workplace to university to social life. You have worked closely with refugees, especially with youth in the United States, guiding them, as I have said before, in education, job skills, and community building. Afghanistan today faces a situation where millions of young people, especially girls, are being denied the right to education altogether, and many are fleeing the country to seek hope elsewhere. This creates both a loss at home and challenge abroad, unfortunately. But based on your work, what do you believe that are the most important first steps in helping Afghan refugee youth adapt and succeed in new countries while also, preserving their identity and hope for the better future?
Yes, so obviously you would assume the very first things that they need when they come over to a new country is housing, shelter, clothing, and food. But a lot of times I feel like some organizations will just stop there and assume that's all they need. But really, as social workers or as government workers, it's our job to step back and to listen to what the refugees would need, whether that's mental health care or job training or to continue their education. And what helps and what's most important, specifically in Texas, is the funding for these organizations to keep going. Because my organization specifically was about developing the refugee beyond basic needs, beyond just housing, shelter, and food, giving them job skills and learning about the city that they're in and connecting them to other cultural groups or previous Afghan groups that are there to make sure that they are able to feel comfortable and to let their culture flourish because they're not here to adapt and be a type of American westernized culture. They're brought
Mhm.
here for a chance at a better life while still holding on to their cultural beliefs. And I think sometimes there's disconnect where we expect a refugee to come in knowing everything and knowing all about the Western culture. And I don't believe that that is correct. So we must preserve and honor the cultures and traditions that they bring along.
Yeah. Thank you for what you're doing for youth, not only for Afghan youth, but globally. But as a last question, I would like to say this, that one of the greatest struggles for Afghan youth right now is not only survival, but also finding the strength to dream in a world that constantly tells them no, just simply no. When schools are closed, opportunities are blocked, and freedom is taken away, and their futures are already stolen, it becomes so difficult to imagine a future, especially inside Afghanistan. In your work, you help young refugees, set goals, build confidence, as I have mentioned before, and take leadership roles even when their circumstances were tough. But Afghanistan's needs that same spark of belief and leadership in its next generation. As a last question, how can young Afghans, both inside the country and outside the country, rebuild their sense of leadership and purpose, even when they face enormous barriers in this world?
Yes, this is much easier for me to say because I'm not living in the conditions that they are in. So I say these words not lightly, but as encouragement. Um, Finding that hope and that leadership, it could be as simple as something faith-based. If you are a religious person or with the personal faith, to keep strong to that, to keep connected to what's going to keep you going, staying connected to your family and to youth, and doing your best to surround yourself with people who are also on the same mission as you. And I know that there's a lot of fear and a lot of persecution, so I say this as if it's easy and it's not. But definitely having that interfaith connection with others, the hope and networking. Networking is so important. So accessing media if possible and reaching out, stepping out of your comfort zone, being more proactive than you ever imagined you'd have to be.
Uh, Thank you once again, dear Lauren, for joining us. I wish to have you in future episode. But at the end, if there is anything that I have missed, or if you have any message for your sisters inside and outside Afghanistan, mic is yours. You can tell them.
Yes, to my lovely sisters in Afghanistan, even in the US, um, even if government and presidential systems have disconnected us, where we have lost our jobs, lost our connection, can no longer serve you at this specific organization. We are still here for you personally. Every refugee worker and social worker has a heart for you. And just because you cannot come to a physical office, you can always come to us, and we will always be there to support you, despite the administrations.